Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Dreamcatchers.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, good morning.
Good morning.
We are here today with two guests we're very excited to introduce in a moment for an episode of What's the Matter, which we haven't done in a little while. And we're going to talk about well-being today and being well, which I kind of like the double entendre. I'm Jamie, for those who don't know me. My sister Marissa.
I'm Marissa.
We are
Hi.
we are the Dreamcatchers. We are coming live at you from a shared universe in Red Bank. We're so thrilled to be here today with our guests who we're going to have introduce themselves. Go ahead and introduce yourselves to the audience. Who's here today?
Hi, I'm Evan Rubin.
Evan, who are you? What do you do?
Oh, I'm a physician in town, an osteopathic physician, and
What's that?
What's an osteopathic?
Yeah, what's that?
Danny's
I'm like,
working for us.
Danny.
that?
What is osteopathic? Just quickly.
Well, quickly.
Is it about the bones?
It is about the bones. It is about more than just the bones. Osteopathic medicine is a kind of it's a specialty in medicine, but it's also a way of viewing health and the body. There's a wholeness there, so it's a truly holistic practice, and we learn how to treat and diagnose things with our hands.
Love it. Okay.
It's changed about the way I think about it.
I'm sure you do. Mm-hmm. I'm sure it has. And who are you, my love?
I'm Danny Rubin, and I own Pilates Blast right here in town.
Just like small aside, how do you guys know each other?
We live together.
Oh, that's what I thought.
You live together.
We got married.
We got married.
How many episodes have we done? 87?
This is 86 today.
86?
Yep.
So I don't think we've ever had a
Couple.
couple. Have we?
Oh, that's so
We've
cute.
had sisters, we've had relatives, we've had partners, but I don't think we've ever had husband and wife.
No.
No.
Well, that's awesome.
Husband and wife, health executives, if you will.
Yep.
And local celebrities, if you will.
Yeah, that's our favorite. One of our favorite words is a local celebrity, meaning you're micro influencers here in the area in your businesses. I'm just looking down because I'm trying to multitask. And I think why we chose to have you together was because of the fact that you kind of both live this well lifestyle that you teach in different ways, right, to people all around the community. So today's matter, what's the matter, by the way, when we say that is, and it's in our intro, but we like to say it while we're live, is we have multiple arcs of our podcast. Typically, we talk about people's story, like what it is what's your story is the theme. Sometimes we do what's called what's the word, meaning we kind of just come up with a word that we think encompasses you. And then other times we do what we call what's the matter, which is kind of a double entendre, which we love. Like, what's the matter, like on your mind, and what's the matter? You go to a doctor, what's the matter? You want to feel better, especially at this time of year. It's like, beginning of the year, resolutions, etc. And so the matter at hand right today for us is well-being and just being well. And you kind of come at that in two different ways. So we'd love to kind of unpack how we got here. So our first question is always the same, no matter the arc of the podcast, which is, what did you want to be when you grew up? Was it a Pilates studio owner? Probably not. So what is it? What's your
I
earliest,
know what she wanted to be.
What's your earliest memory of what you wanted to be?
A dancer.
Same.
Yeah.
Same girl, same.
That was it. And I was very, I didn't see anything outside of that. And the only class I ever failed was typing. And I was like, well, that's okay, because I don't think I need to know how to do that anyway. Because
Yep.
I don't want to be in an office. I mean,
And when you say dancer, like my dream, by the way, serious dream, was I wanted to be a backup dancer for, at the time, Janet Jackson.
Shut up.
Yes, same.
what would I have said? I would have said
Backup
dancer
for Janet Jackson.
So her Velvet Rope tour was like the high of my whatever, and I was one of the last girls cut before that tour.
No way.
Like the peak, and then
So my dream job was is
so
like a
close.
trigger for you. Okay,
Team
sorry about that.
Landon.
Sorry about that.
By the way, it wasn't me. I didn't say it. I didn't add you.
Yeah,
it was, but it was, it was such a fun process,
Yeah.
getting called back and called back and called back, and so that was enough, because
Sure.
you know what I mean.
That's-
it was.
That is a holistic approach to
That
your
is
journey.
crazy, because you had given me a little list, and I was like, oh, that's easy. I've told that a million times.
Yeah, I want to be a
dancer.
Did you know that?
I knew she wanted to be a dancer. Yeah.
Well,
I didn't know the Janet Jackson.
I lived in
think we
rural
should.
Virginia, so we didn't have cable TV. So I would have a VHS video tape, and that's the only way I had access to Janet Jackson. So that's how I would learn her dances.
I don't
Wow.
know. Where in Virginia are you from?
Stafford, which now it's,
Was that
it's
by
much.
Roanoke?
No, we're like we're right off of DC, right between Richmond and Washington.
Oh,
so now
okay.
it's very built up. Like
So,
it's just
by like Rappahannock.
the Rappahannock River,
Versa went to
Fredericksburg,
Richmond.
I went to
Virginia.
Richmond.
Oh,
I spent some time
yes.
on 95 South and 64
Yeah.
West.
King's Dominion.
King's Dominion. I've been there. Wow, I love that. And well, then it started as Janet Jackson, morphed into Britney Spears, wanted to be a backup dancer my whole life, same thing.
Yeah.
And then danced in college and then just dance for fun now. But obviously, coming from wanting to be a performer, I'm not completely shocked with what you ended up doing with your life. And we'll get there. We're going to talk
Yeah.
about kind of the jungle gym that it takes to get to where you are now. But what about you? Did you want to be a doctor?
Oh,
physician
I
at
mean,
all? In
originally,
medicine?
what I really wanted to do was be a lion tamer. That's
lion tamer.
Yeah, that's probably the thing that drove me at the beginning
Never.
of my life. Is what I
You've
wanted.
never had that.
I think you'd still want to do that.
I would.
actually.
I would give it.
Where
a
did
right
that
now.
come from?
Like you were into like circus and like all that
I
stuff?
used to go to Ringling Brothers and see that, but just big cats. Just
No
I'm
way.
all in. Yeah, I think
Where
there's
did
a,
that come
Like
from?
There's
Tiger King
still-
COVID was a big moment
Oh my
for
God,
you?
Tiger King.
Yeah.
Well, it was
Yeah.
way
All right.
before that. Our second date, not to interrupt, I took him to the MGM Grand in Vegas because he lived in New York and he came to visit me in LA. And I took him we stood in line for 2.5 hours to see the big cats at MGM Grand.
And they let you
a
hold
cub.
a lion cub.
So you just
Wow.
had like an obsession with big cats when you were
Yeah,
little.
pretty much. And I still think that there's a 50% chance that once the kids are out of high school, I'm just going to go to Africa for a couple of years.
And, like-
yeah,
Have you done it?
Boot
Have you ever
camp.
gone to African safari?
yeah, but I didn't hold any lions.
Yeah,
so-
no. I did that on my honeymoon. It's the best. Wait, oh my God, that's crazy. We've gotten, I mean, what did I just say? This is our 86th episode? We've never had anything like
never
that.
couple
Well, that's
and
what
never a
happens.
lion trainer.
When you get couples on, they start coming up with some crazy.
He's like,
You
you
can't-
really,
and you can't
lie,
you
'cause
premeditated it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't lie. when
That's
it's-
wild.
But I
So
think
Marissa likes to correlate what we wanted to be when we grew up to what we do now. So can you
I
correlate
do it.
lion tamer to
I
physician?
think I'm going to need a little bit more
Osteopathic.
material.
I'll try to build a bridge. Let's see what we can do.
I mean, I like I can web pretty much anything, but like I feel like I need to be like, okay, so from lion tamer, did you ever have an original job? And you're not from rural Virginia because you just feel like you're not.
Where are you from?
Long Island.
Yeah, okay, that feels right. So in sorry, Evan,
right.
I see you. So
Evan Rubin from Long Island.
yeah, that's shocking. So Evan Rubin from Long Island, were you like, did you maybe work at a camp?
Yeah, several
Okay,
times.
so
So
I
you tamed some lions.
So I'm trying to
Kids.
did.
find the verb. All right, so what was your first job?
Like your first
Like
real
your
job
first
that paid
real
you
job.
money.
Well, being a counselor, yeah. I mean, I did stuff growing up, like,
Were you
mow
rank-
lawns and clean gutters on houses and climb around.
So some odd jobs.
Sure, for
But
sure.
like being a counselor would be wrangling.
It is.
Okay.
Taking care of kids at a camp. I'm a family physician. I'm board certified in that. So taking care of kids and kids' parents is very much like taming big cats.
And where did the interest in science come?
I always was interested in science and math. Those were subjects that came easy to me, and they, it just kind of matched with what my brain was doing. So it wasn't too difficult. I was also interested in a lot of other things. So especially in college, I went there with the intention of pursuing science because it was something that came easy and I was excelling in high school. Once I got there, I was exposed to a lot of other things. I ended up being a religion and philosophy major in
No way.
college.
Where'd you go to school?
Tufts University.
Okay.
I
Religion,
had some,
fascinating.
I had some great advisors and teachers there who really kind of exposed a lot of things to me and opened my mind up to a lot of things.
Which, by the way, is good
Do you know
advice.
Sam-
We always
Do you know this? Do you know Rob Samuels?
Didn't you go to
Yeah,
Tufts
I
too?
went to Tufts too.
from
I feel like
Fairhaven.
people don't talk about Tufts as much anymore.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
it was
And
big
it's
when
such
we
a
were
good
young.
school.
Yeah,
Great school.
great school.
I had a great time there. It was,
Yeah, and you're like a little Boston or a lot Boston, right?
yeah. I mean, that's where you go and
But
hang.
as,
I mean, it's
as
in.
great as Boston is, the school as Boston is like a college town, right? We just talked about this. My neighbors and I were.
I was just talking about this too. It's like more
It's a-
colleges
but
in the
it's a
city than any other city.
specific- But they're all specific, right? There's like nowhere there's no equal opportunity, type school. They're all pretty focused, but Tufts obviously is a prestigious academic school. Anyway, so philosophy and religion.
And that's good advice, by the way, because we have a lot of listeners that are undergrad or deciding what they want to do. And I think leaning into your professors and taking their advice and figuring out what makes you tick, right? So that's obviously a huge theme of what we talk about on our coaching business. If you have a dream, you can figure it out. Like, you can find how to catch it as long as you ask for help and you listen and you ask questions and you say yes and all of the things. So at a very young age, here you are, 18, 19 years old, living in Boston away from home, not a lion tamer. So did you intern and like start getting jobs that way, or did you always know you're going to end up going for like a further degree?
So that's a great question. To go back to what you just said about leaning into teachers and advisors, when you're young, 18, 19, and especially in that kind of period that was a transition, and it's fine to go somewhere with an intention of what to do and do that. There are plenty of people that go and know they want to go to medical school when they're 15, or 12 or whatever, and they continue to pursue that. But a lot of people see college and time afterwards, or even if you don't go to college and you travel and go to Europe or whatever it is, as time to find themselves, right? Learn who you are. And a lot of times, especially in a transition period, it's hardest to see your potential and what you're gonna, where your strengths are for yourself. Sometimes it's helpful to have someone you trust who's older, who's seen a lot of it.
We say that to people all the time. Look around, look up, look left and right.
Yep.
Who's around you? Who inspires you? What do they do? And what do their journeys look like? So
I actually think, and this is not that shocking now because of our wisdom and where the world has evolved, but your interest level in religion and philosophy is probably what intuitively led you to the path of medicine that you practice, because your brain, right? So Jamie and I are big believers, and a lot of other like-minded motivational experts will say the same, that we all are ourselves, right? So we don't, and this is actually my dad's quote, you don't really change, you evolve, and some of your sharper edges get a little bit more blurred or calmer as you age, because you accept others for who they are and you accept yourself for who you are. But at the end of the day, who you are in those formative years is who you truly end up being as an adult. Which pieces we use are what's interesting, right? So I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, okay, here's a kid that had use of both of his brains, okay? All the sections. And that's not common, mind you. It's rare. Most people are left or right, as we all one-dimensionally know that language. You're an Excel spreadsheet or you're an artist, right? There's a few of us that will mind that gap. I'm one of those people too.
Same.
Jamie is too. My husband is too, who is a walking spreadsheet, but a musician, right? So there's not that many of us. I think we're a smaller group. But when I find you tripping into philosophy and religion, and then going to medical school, and then being exposed to all the things that you could do, your way of thinking helped you to challenge the traditions of science. Because the marriage between religion and philosophy and science is not an equal-footed marriage. There are some that are completely on one side versus others that are completely on the other side. I actually think it's fascinating that that's your background.
So then how did you find this where you landed, like in this area? Like, did you intern and then start working and then all the things, or did you take a more traditional trajectory?
So after graduating with that degree, I always kind of knew, and you bring it up, like you don't always change, you don't really change who you are.
Right.
So that seed of the science and the medicine was there. Had a detour investigating these other things, using that part of the brain, whatever. I was working. My father's a dentist, and I was working in his office one day, at the desk. And he had a patient who was a doctor, and he said to me, I was in my early 20s, he said, if you're ever thinking of going to medical school, you should do it now. Do it when you're young. Don't do something else and then think you're going to come back to it, which you can do. People do it, but it's easiest to do it this way.
Totally.
When he said that's okay. You're right. It is something I'm going to want to do, so do it now. So I went to medical school, or I got in, did prerequisites, got in. And the very first day, the first week of medical school, again, I was thinking I was going to do
Plastics.
more
No, I'm just kidding.
actually psychiatry.
Yeah, I was like, come on.
Damn.
I know. It's
this
actually
day.
psychiatry was the thing I was thinking of going
Sure.
to, because I did some other stuff with a graduate psych before medical school. But anyway, the very first week there was an osteopath who had a study group, and we just came and sometimes it was every week, sometimes only 4 or 5 of us, sometimes there were 25, and I just went every week and started learning what traditional osteopathy was and where it fit in medicine, the philosophy of it and the practice of it, and it instantly made sense to me. And that's what really shifted my trajectory. When I had an experience with osteopathy, it changed my world and what I thought was possible in terms of health and how people can really find that and open themselves up to health. And then and I shifted from psychiatry to, I knew I was going to do family medicine. I wanted to treat children. I wanted to treat adults.
So this was early on. You found it pretty early.
Yeah, the beginning of
Because you found a mentor, which is,
Because I had a
again,
mentor.
advice that we always tell people.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't think you can go to your practice unless you can pronounce
No, that's not true. You
Oh, okay.
can call it anything you want to call it. It still
Pathy.
works.
the O thing.
Osteopathy.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have
There's
to
a-
put the
there's some
accent on the
extra-
second O.
And the-
Osteopathy.
That's it.
Osteopathy.
Osteopathy.
So now, don't you find though, and then don't worry, Danny, you're going to take front stage, front and center.
I'm going to continue to practice.
But don't you find though that in 2024, there's so much. I mean, granted, the world's upside down, probably worse than ever. That's not this podcast. That's a different podcast. But don't you find that there's just more awareness finally in the whole? You
Well-being as a whole.
You were walking a very narrow path. I don't really think people, common culture, knew what you and your mentor and your colleagues were doing and or recognized it. And I feel like there's much more of a not only understanding, curiosity, and common, all kinds of people acceptance. Where I always think of Jamie's best friend from growing up. This is not about you, but Jamie's best friend from growing up is girl Beth. Hi Beth. Her parents were
like the only crunchy people we knew.
like,
You know what
and
I'm
I
saying?
don't want to say crunchy.
No, crunchy.
But they were
we're
crunchy.
like we're
Like,
like
they were
do you have
vegetarian.
any good snacks? Like where, like there were like beet sodas, and I'm gonna tell her to listen to this. She'll love this.
No, but they
There
were
was a
like
place called-
vegetarians.
Yeah, and I'm
Like-
like,
like
what
the
is
way-
this world, and like now it's like every other person.
But not like healthy food, not like Ocean Cafe level. I love Ocean Cafe. More like, what's the place on Front Street? Like Good Karma. Like,
like good karma.
You're like
yeah,
a
like they're
little
like
more
eating tempeh like before it was a thing.
Right.
Like I'll never like. I mean, they ate very well, but like they no artificial like sweeteners and
And this
colors
is in
their house.
1988.
Yeah, like, literally.
You're like, why are you so weird, Beth?
Yeah, like why is that weird?
My mom's buying like,
Kraft like
Fat-free-
fat-free singles.
yeah.
Like Snackwells. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the next
Yeah.
Some of them only have 100 calories.
Yeah.
I know,
yeah.
totally.
Yes.
Like only if you eat the whole sleeve.
Right. Totally.
Totally.
Okay, so you had a fairly, I guess, typical path that way, whereas like you didn't come back to it, which I think is kind of cool. Like found it early on. So what about you? How did you go from getting cut from Janet Jackson? What was your jungle gym like before you got here?
Well, so I grew up rural Virginia and like knew immediately, like from the time I was 10, I was like, very close to my family, had a very good close group of friends, which are still my friends today. So I don't want it to be like I had to get out, but like something internally was like, I have
This
to
is
get
not
out.
where I
Like,
belong,
any
yeah.
one of my dearest friends that I grew up with will tell
All
me,
knew
like,
you were going.
Yeah, like just like, so when I was 18, I'd gotten a scholarship for Alvin Ailey, and I'd like been looking into moving to the city, but I don't know, like I was looking at like I could live with like nuns in like a dorm. I don't know. I was like, I don't know that that's how I want to.
Yeah, that's intimidating.
Yeah, like I was in
New York is intimidating in every decade and every generation.
Agree.
If you're not from around here.
Right. And then I had a dance teacher that was like, I'm doing auditions for a cruise ship. And, I kind of thought like, I want bigger things than that, but I was like, okay, well, this may be
You
my
said
opportunity
yes.
to get out. Right. So that was my first real job. And it was my like changed my life. Like
Your
my,
aha.
yeah, I got down there. There was an uneven number of guys and girls, so they asked who's now one of my dearest friends, Craig. They're like, okay, there's got to be a girl and boy living together. Who pick somebody? And he chose me. And he was like a 26-year-old ballet dancer from Canada, and I was like, 18 from Virginia. He's like, that one. I feel like I can do some real influencing. And really, it's like he was the most brilliant dancer that you would only like kind of see on TV. And I'm like, A, what are you doing dancing on a cruise ship? And then B, his whole thing was like, it wasn't even about dance. I remember, and I hope this isn't off-putting to any of the audience. He said, I simply dance to travel and meet new people to drink with. And I was like,
Well, that's a perspective,
Yes,
Craig.
Craig.
I'm not allowed to drink yet. But
Yes.
I was like, in that moment, I was like, wow, like even just in this moment, I felt like I'd met my people. As soon as I got down there, just being in a cast, being with other performers and stuff, I was like, okay, none of that stuff really matters. Like this is where I'm supposed to be. Like, so be damned any scholarships or this or that. Like, I was just like, I just want to like continuously meet my people that inspire me, people that like, I just want to be with around, And, we laughed for about...
What was it, like a Royal Caribbean?
It was Norwegian Cruise Line.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was on the Norway the first time. They did like the biggest theater on the water.
Sure.
Like, it was like the real deal too, which I was
Right,
shocked by.
Norwegian
I
was like the vacation destination.
Yes. And it was,
Yeah.
they were hard shows. Like I was dancing my butt off in heels for the first time. I was like, whoa, this, so I really actually learned a lot. I was definitely not above it in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
I
People
learned
that
a
work
lot.
on fun fact that I don't think I've ever said in the third thing that we've never said in 86 episodes. I'm certified or was certified to teach art on cruise ships.
Oh.
And I don't know what chapter of my life that was, but it was a slim one. And I went on one with this one who was begrudging. And we have
Some of our favorite memories
are from that vacation. And then,
She was allowed to bring a guest. We weren't like in staff quarters. We were guests on the ship. The only requirement,
I had to teach.
she had to teach for 1 hour a day on the days we were at sea.
It's-
We got
it's
to
a
go for
joke.
free.
Yeah.
And I was
fabulous.
23. I'm like,
Meanwhile, my
this
boss
is
was like,
amazing.
"You're going away for how long?" Like at that time, and I was like, "Well, thank God I did that.
Yeah.
Thank God, dear everyone, we want you to work and contribute to society, but take advantage of opportunity. Thanks.
Take your
Love,
PTO.
Mom."
It really is.
Take
like,
your time off.
It was
Yeah.
an incredible experience. Like, I think I did it at the perfect time for me, like 18 to 20.
Love.
Met a lot of people that were in the industry, and then I felt the confidence.
So you
to,
didn't
like,
go to college. This was your college.
This
Got
was
it.
college. This were college years, and then I was able to move to LA. After that, because I was like, okay,
You had
I felt-
infrastructure.
I
You had
just felt
friends.
Like
Did you go with any of them?
No, I did go by myself with $600. It was, it's that story. Like it really is real. You're
Yeah.
just like, what am I
So
doing?
did you perform for that all those years?
Lots of waiting table jobs, like when you first get there. And then my second and probably my favorite job ever was Universal Studios. And again, in my industry, if you work at a theme park, it is like, well, no, I was just somebody that I'm like, oh, who has it better than me? This is like amazing. Like I get to be in a dressing room. It's always been about the dressing room for me more than being on the stage. Like that is what I learned in those years of like the practical jokes and the information, when I stopped, like fast forwarding, like, 15 years later, and I was no longer a rockette, no longer in a dressing room, I was like,
Just like a quick rocket
I
drop.
was like, I don't know.
It's like what after I was a rockette, which we didn't even get there. We didn't
but
even get there.
that's just this
Yeah.
part of the life. But I really missed it. That was the part I missed. Everybody's like, do you miss being on stage? I'm like, I don't think about that.
It's
I
the
miss-
backstage stuff.
think
Yes.
what I'm hearing from you
I love that.
is you had on your insides were not matched by any of the people that loved you and created a foundation from where you grew up. So when you found people that matched your insides, that's how you continued to fill your bucket professionally.
Yes.
So, and when you thought of the dressing
And what I'm
room,
hearing is the
that's-
dressing room is
yes,
the camaraderie,
your
the
community.
Yes,
the community.
yes. I do have to interrupt because I'm going to make her watch this. But Natalie has been my best friend since first grade, and she is like we are so different. She became a mom at like 22, and blah blah, like all the things. But I have, when she's watching this, she is my people, and I met her very luckily when I was in kindergarten. But there is a difference of
Of
community.
course.
Do you know what I mean?
Well,
But
you
I just-
couldn't be
No
you if
offense,
you weren't-
Natalie.
Natalie,
We
we know
love
that
you.
she couldn't be
I would
you
never
without you.
Listen, I love Beth. She was super crunchy in first grade or whatever grade we met.
But you know, you want to like honor
yeah.
that, like I said, I did want to get it, but it was never to get away from the, you know, she came to visit me on a cruise ship. Like some of our my best memories during this time are when some of my best.
No, we
friends,
love Stafford. We're into Stafford.
Yeah, we're
you
there.
wouldn't be you if it weren't for that.
Yes.
I meant the
Yes.
the inside
community.
voices.
Yes. So so you moved to LA, you work, now you're working. How did you get back to New York and become a Rockette?
I met this guy.
You met-
So I like
So because of you.
I drove to LA and got out, and it was just like, yeah, this is home. And I never thought I would leave. Like I was like, I'll just have to figure out how to get my parents here, and maybe Natalie, and like you
Yep.
know the people I care about. But I was like, this is it for me. Like this is where I've always meant to be. And then I did audition for the Rockettes out there after a few years. Like what was great also about working at Universal is like not the fact that you get to laugh all day, and they gave us health insurance and all the things that a lot of dancers don't have, you know, going job to job. You just had a roster of people behind you that wanted to work your shift that day. So it's like, all right, well, I'm going to go to New York and work on this show for a little bit, and you can just take off. Like it was the flexibility, like all of it was just insanity of how great it was. And I'm so glad that I appreciated it then, because I was working with a lot of people that were on tour with Janet Jackson and like were like in their careers further along. And I think they didn't really like appreciate how like awesome that was. I'm like, I get to go home and sleep in my bed all night and then wake up and have to be at work at 9 and laugh all day. And you know what I mean? It was really
But I think
special.
that what's interesting about your story is that, you know, and we talk about this all the time, and you're probably one of maybe actually there's been a couple of guests who really like got the dream job, right? That's the dream job. Yeah. But what you also did is found the dream in the job, which we talk about all the time, right? So like, sure, you didn't get the Janet Jackson backup dancer, which is what your dream was. But here you are like taking this job, not being above it, being humbled by it, and actually finding as much joy, if not maybe more joy, doing the Universal or the cruise ship or the things that some of these dancers might have been like, I'm not doing that. Right. So that to me as a coach, I'm constantly saying to people, say yes. Like you never know.
Absolutely.
You could start these jobs and be like, actually, I have health insurance and I get to sleep in my own bed. And that's the dream job. Right.
And it allows me to do other things. Like
So when we're growing up, and by the way, the dream job now is owning my own studio and being home for my kids. Like the dream job changes as we grow up. So if we can learn that lesson sooner, right? So a lot of us and most of our guests, we learned it as we went, and now we can be wise to our audience and to our clients to tell them otherwise. But I think that's really good advice, right? Is finding the dream in the job. You weren't necessarily doing the exact dream job, but it was pretty darn close, right?
So Rockette, like I auditioned for Rockettes out in LA. I did a few years of their touring show because it was just a better situation. And then I came to New York to work on like just a random workshop they were working on, and that's when I met him. He was just moved into the city for his like medical rotation, so it's your 4th year of medical school. And he was living with a guy he grew up with and his girlfriend, who happened to be a Rockette and a very good friend of mine.
Funny.
So after the show, she's like, "Oh, we're all going to go out. My roommate, blah blah," and it was actually a setup for another.
Where
Rockette.
are you living? Like by NYU?
Alphabet City,
East
Village. And so I went over with my friend Meg, who I was staying with those 2 weeks, and I was like, you know, Michelle wants you to meet her roommate. Like, she thinks you guys will be, because I live in LA. Like, nobody's trying to set me up. You know what I mean?
So this is for somebody else.
This is for somebody else.
You took her spot.
I did, but
you were her understudy.
It just all worked out. She wasn't, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't. It all worked out, but that was it. It was that meeting in that apartment.
Just for the audience sake, right? Of all ages, this is a time where like there was no one sending you a picture of him. You were just rolling up to the night and not having any clue where it would take you.
Yeah, and I think it was like, for me, the best thing. Like I was like, I'm gonna get on a plane in like 2 days and
whatever.
Right?
I'll just go meet him. Like whatever. Yeah.
But it wasn't even for me. I was just going to like hang out with Michelle, and she's like, my roommate's cooking. Blah, blah. Happened to be like a great cook. I was like, what's that? And he's like, oh, eggplant. And I was like, I've never had eggplant. I'm like, that's the most delicious thing I've ever had. So I was not the pillar of health. Like, you know, that's one of the things. He's always been like that. And my friends would like out me, and they're like, you know that she eats Snickers and Cokes before the show, right? And I'm like, no, no, I don't. No, I don't.
You're like, it's Diet
actually."
Coke.
Yeah. So then, like, the next day, he was like, I'm going to go on a hike. Do you want, and everybody's just laughing. They're like, you're going hiking? I was like, yeah.
So
Have
he-
you seen
he
that?
actually-
Yes, I'm going hiking. And pretend like
Although
it's
you
normal.
were always in this fitness world, he actually made you. At the time, that's not considered fitness, but you know what I mean. Like you
No.
were in a performing role, that's image and body image related.
Yes.
But because it was the years that it was,
Right.
it wasn't
No.
really the way that it is now.
No, they weren't healthy then.
No,
they
it
weren't
was, It
eating.
was probably the opposite. Like, I mean, I was probably the only dancer I know that didn't smoke, but like
Yeah, it's
that
like
world, like it
cigarettes
was like
and-
cigarettes and cokes, and
Yes,
like, I mean,
yes.
it really is like disgusting when you think about it.
Yeah.
And I was like healthy compared to them, but my toxic trait at that time was like I knew Snickers was going to make me feel great on stage.
Yes.
Not too heavy, but
Yes,
like
Snickers.
just
That's like
something-
their
I feel like
Snickers
that's their
campaign.
ad
That is
campaign.
their
Yeah.
ad campaign right now. Okay, so
so
you
now
guys
In the grand
meet.
scheme of things, it's chocolate and peanut. Like, how bad could it be?
Remember I said that's why I love
Well,
you.
and the other thing is, I mean, when fitness is your job, you don't necessarily think about
Yeah.
doing fitness things
Right.
outside of it, right? That's
Right, so you're like,
how it
let's
is.
go for a hike, and
That's
he's like,
work.
what?
She's like, am I going to get
Yeah.
paid for this hike?
Yeah, like-
You know?
I was like,
Where's going to be
sure.
the camera along the trail?
Right.
No, so no.
I
you
love
know.
hiking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
We also
so
go shopping.
yeah, let's hike
So
to
this
a
is
to
in
a
New York
store.
City? Where were you hiking?
North of the city.
Yeah, you went to like Bear Mountain.
Yeah, yeah.
thing.
That's up by where we grew up. Okay, so now let's fast forward a bit. So now you're a Rockette. So now you're in New York.
Well, we were long distance for about a year, but we just knew, like, when I left that trip, we knew, it wasn't even like a thing. It was just like, yep, okay, let me just go back, tie up some loose ends, and I'll move
like-
here. Because I'm like,
It was like a whirlwind. at the
yeah, because
beginning.
I was like, he's in medical school. He can't just up and move. And at the time, it didn't even feel hard. Like, it was a lot to give up. I just got my Pilates certification because
Imagine she's like, I'm gonna move to LA and like live here forever, and then meets this random dude.
I know.
I'm
But
gonna move
that's-
back.
I was so
Like, this
sure.
is love.
This is
Yeah.
the funniest thing.
Yeah.
Is like, I'm in like the dressing room or whatever, and they're like, "You're moving across country for a man," because it was just kind of the opposite of who I was.
And
like,
everything
fiercely
you were, like,
independent,
trying to
blah, blah, blah.
do.
So I would just like make fun of myself all the time. I would be like, I met a man. Now I'm just giving up everything. I'm moving
Yes.
across country. Because I was so sure that I could like laugh about it because I wasn't. Like,
I mean, it helps he lived in New York. It's not like you're like moving to Iowa.
Right.
No offense to Iowa.
Right.
Like you were like, I could do this there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was intimidating, but I mean, I moved right into the apartment that he was living in with the other, so it was 4 of us in this little East Village apartment.
So you guys had like just met and you started living together pretty
A
quickly.
year
It was a
later.
year
Oh, it was a
long
year
distance.
later. Okay.
Like,
Right.
You
And
did long
in
distance for a
retrospect,
while.
it was like Tuesday, but like,
But yes.
now.
So you
this
did
is
a year
right
long
then.
distance. And then then you got to the Rockettes?
Yes, I came to the city like 16 days after 9/11. Like that was a pretty, like I should have been there sooner. I think I was like the 14th of September I was supposed to move there, and then you just, gave it a little space. But it was just such an interesting,
That's when you moved here? Mm-hmm. So I know exactly what that felt like because David moved to his studio apartment on September 13th of 2001 on 14th between 5th and University.
yeah.
Oh wow.
And that is just something that we don't have to say any other words.
Exactly.
We
Like
know
it's
exactly
just
what
like,
that was like.
Yeah, my experience moving to the city just would be like unlike anything
Any other.
before that. Do you know what I mean? And even like, it's still not whatever, but yeah, it just didn't even feel like the same.
She came back,
Yeah.
but those first few years were probably, in retrospect, probably what we'll say about the last 4.
right.
Right?
Yeah. Like a weird
But
time.
We were all in our early 20s at that time in the city. We experienced New York in a way that no one else did.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like studying
Nothing like
subways.
being a Rockette
I know.
after 9/11.
Yeah, oh my
Like,
God.
hey, here I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was all very conflicting. So then I started doing the show there and stopped traveling with them because it just made more sense to not pay for an apartment there and travel,
So if you don't mind like fast forwarding slightly,
Yeah.
I'd love to hear then, okay, so you spent most of your formative years as a performer. How did you get to where we are now? And tell us a little bit about how you bridged the gap from that life to here and opening your own business.
Do you want to go first or me?
Oh,
Was that for me or him?
Either one.
Okay.
That's both of you, actually, because as a Long Island guy, David's Long Island also, I'm from Bergen County. Jamie and I were raised in Bergen County. I'm going to guess that you had the similar reasons to pick our area. other than maybe a job brought you down here. But I mean, I had my eyes set on this area because it was the only thing that felt different than anywhere else I had been in the tri-state. And I wanted to get that LA vibe or that Miami vibe, but I'm also a Jersey girl.
Yes.
Go ahead. How'd you get down
So,
here?
so we lived in the city for a number of years. We had our first child, and the prices in the city were kind of exorbitant.
Well, you're
had
practicing at this point already.
Yeah.
I'm practicing in the city. I had an osteopathic practice that I joined one of my mentors, and I was doing that. I was also working in family medicine for a group as well. So two offices.
You're
in the
working
city.
for other people. You weren't working for yourself at that time.
Yes and no. I definitely was an employee for the family medicine group doing primary care. The other practice was kind of building my own thing
Got
with
it.
another osteopath.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
You were able to kind of build it under the infrastructure of somewhere else.
And the both practices were in Manhattan.
Both practices in Manhattan. I could walk to them from our apartment. The whole time we were there, we had friends that lived down here, so we would get out
Like
of
my
the
best
city
friend.
and visit another woman that Danny danced with, and her husband, and we would come down and visit them on weekends, on holidays, New Year's, whatever it is, the summer, and go to the beach. And I grew up at the beach. I love going to the beach. I grew up on Long Island, like I said, a suburb of New York. It's a very funny thing is you grow up on Long Island, you're taught to look down on Jersey.
Of course.
Our
In New Jersey,
mom grew up there
you're
too.
taught to look down on Long Island.
Yes.
But the reality is, having lived now in both places, they're pretty identical, right? You're both
Yes.
suburb of New York, and you're both by the ocean, if you like that. So anyway, so we fell
You're from the South Shore?
kind of in the middle, but I would go to Jones Beach.
Yeah.
and-
So
and
our
so
mom
forth
is
and
from
whatnot.
Atlantic Beach and grew up going to the beach. Like she lived like actually at the beach, like five
Like the
houses
equivalent
in.
of Seabright.
Yeah, like Seabright. And so then met my dad, and like because of the commute and all that, in those days, you commuted. There was no. It's so crazy to think about this, but people moved to certain towns because they like knew someone else that moved to that town, and like it was an easy commute, right? Similar to now, but now you can like Google it and look it up and things like that. So they moved to North Jersey, and where we grew up, and my mom always was like, he took me away from the beach. Now they're divorced, but I wanted to be at the beach. So we would get in the car every weekend, both days, and drive down here. And we'd go to where at that time the first public beach that we knew of, which was Deal. So we would drive to 105, get back in the car, drive home. We were 168.
Phillips Avenue Beach.
Phillips
Public
Beach.
beach.
And
the
like
concession, great tuna salad.
yeah, great tuna. And that was my mom's major requirement. They need to have a bathroom and a concession.
Because
if
the
you're going
South
with
Shore
kids,
beach clubs, the South Shore has beach clubs, and that's what she grew up going.
yeah. So we would go there because my aunt was still there, and we'd come here anyway. So that's how we discovered this area, but we didn't really know that these towns existed
No.
at all,
Right.
and that there was beach
Because
clubs.
God forbid
and we're
we
like,
made a
wait,
left off the street and got lost.
yeah, because there was no like maps. You're just like,
Right.
you go to this exit and you get off. Like, unless you're like looking at a map.
Right. Such a different time.
Yeah,
It
such a
is
different
so
time.
different.
Anyway, continue. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we would visit this area. We loved it. And we loved our friends. We had a great time with them all the time. It also happened to be, getting a little bit closer to Virginia because we would go and visit
Yeah.
her family because we were on the East Coast. So after our daughter was born, she's about 6 months old, we moved to found a house and moved to the area. And for a while, I
Did
was
you
going
commute?
back up to the city
Until COVID.
right until COVID. I did soon after that, actually, before we moved, I think I found a job locally at an urgent care that I could start doing. So I didn't have to go back for both of those offices. I just kept my private practice and just shifted. And so I had that private practice in the city, and then I would work for the urgent care.
So when I moved down here, because you're one of the very first people I met, because I was injured. So that's just other background. I met Danny before I lived here. I was injured, and I was in rehab Pilates in Hoboken. And I was told that I should only take Pilates classes from teachers that were certified from certain schools, which I think you were one of them. Otherwise, how would I have gotten to you?
I don't
Remember. And then also, I knew that she had a Legree Method studio, and I loved that, which we'll talk about in a second. But and I was coming down here because we were in the fortunate position where I was helping to build a house. So I would try and fit, because I was working full time and my kids were little and I lived in Hoboken and my job was in the city. I would try and steal a class or workout in when I was doing like tile. Right. So I was down here and found her, and I could have sworn you had an office in that space.
He did in that, but yes. So you were.
That was in like 2016.
He was doing triple duty when we first moved
Got
down
it.
here. Because, when you have that relationship with your patients for so
Right,
long,
it'd be
I mean, you
hard to
probably
leave
treated
them.
Right.
So he was honoring that, and then rebuilding down here, because again, that's the whole thing about owning your own business. Like, you're building it from scratch.
Right.
There's no
Yeah, so I'd love to hear that from you. Like, let's switch gears for a second then. So you were commuting. How did you do this? Like, how did you, because I think a lot of our listeners are, often will hear this and it's inspiring to them. But they're
Also,
like,
it has to do with our title, well-being.
yeah, exactly. So obviously, in order to live a well life and your own well-being and your family, you're like, I can't do this commute anymore forever. Like, I need to figure out how to do this closer to home and build that from scratch here, which obviously for you as well, which we'll get to you. But
So it was
tell us how
more
you
than
did that.
just not wanting to do the commute forever, because I until COVID I was fine going into the city and seeing
Yeah.
those patients. I
So it was like
I
twice
said,
a week.
Yeah, it was twice a week. Some days once a week, some days twice a week. What really drove the practice here was, this is my passion. This is what I believe in terms of healthcare and being able to not
being
only
able to-
treat people but educate people as to how they can be healthy and sustain their own health. And because I do this, it was always one off. Oh, so and so, especially through Danny, so and so has this issue. They want to talk to you. Do you think you can help? Yeah, I think it can help. So I'd treat them in our garage or our home. I have a portable table, or I'd go to their house. There was enough people that had an interest, enough people that needed it, that I was finally like, you know what, I want, this is where I want to be. I want to treat my community. I want to treat my friends. I want to treat my kids' friends. I want to treat my friends' kids.
Because you had a passion about it. You wanted to
I
teach
just you want to
change.
be a local,
A local celebrity, as we say.
a local doctor.
Yeah, local doctor.
But and get people to not just, and that was also some of the things with the urgent care. Not that they're not necessary, absolutely necessary. But seeing myself and what I wanted to do was, so I wanted something that was a little more sustaining in terms of relationships, and also in terms of educating people so they could take care of themselves and then their families and all that stuff. So being able to have an established practice here, you're right, triple duty. It was building a practice here, maintaining and continuing to build a practice in New York. And then I always...
By the way, still, and raising small kids.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is not easy. And then your wife opens up this.
So when was that?
I mean,
when did-
she's out of the house at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
When did you?
That was interesting timing. Yeah, my kids were 4 and 6, and I was 40, and I was like, let's do this. But it, again, it was an involved. When I was dancing, I never thought I would teach fitness. It was a back injury, prescribed Pilates. I did it for 6 days a week for like 2 years, because it was under like sweet spot, like under a workman's comp case back then. So you could just do that, and it was incredible. And I wish that healthcare would cover that, because it really helped me a lot, and then I got certified. And so when I moved to New York, I was kind of a new teacher. So we got a reformer in our little studio. Like, once we moved out of Alphabet City and got our own studio, I had a reformer under our loft bed that I would pull out for clients. And I started just small, like just with other Rockettes and stuff like that. And then I started teaching at a studio. It's like one of the first places that ever did classes. So, because we're going back to like,
Yeah.
Was it on Irving
2001.
Place?
It was Reforming New York, right?
Yeah.
And I was one of their first instructors there. It was like 11 machines. I was
I
like,
wonder if we crossed paths
Don't.
back then.
I
That's
think we
really,
talked
we
about
probably
that.
must have. Because we're all around the same, not Jamie, she's
Yeah.
younger than us, but we were all doing the same thing at the same time.
right. Yeah. So
Yeah, we talk about this all the time about how fitness, like classes were like not a thing, and that the Soul Cycle effect, et cetera, and that now there's boutique fitness everywhere. But that wasn't a thing. You went to the gym.
Well, when I started teaching Pilates down here, so I was working in the city, in Midtown at a studio, and I only did like, a couple classes a week, because I just wanted a community. I wanted like other instructors to be around, because I was also
Again,
building,
looking for the dressing room.
looking for the dressing room. Still doing Rockettes though, but Rockettes at that point had just been like an October to January kind of thing. And so I could maintain the clientele I was building during that season. And then when I got pregnant with Isla, that was my last rocketing situation. And by then I already had this practice that was like
Thanks,
pretty.
Isla.
Yes, exactly. They were like, I can shove into that costume one more year. And I had already had like a business. So it was a pretty easy transition for me motherhood.
Did you even realize you were being forward thinking?
Not really. I mean, yes and no. Like, I feel like as a dancer, I just couldn't ever figure out. And luckily, I married somebody that was very much like, I definitely want a family. And like, never pushy, but he just knew. Because as a dancer, I'm like, what is exactly the right year to give up everything that you've been working for your whole life?
That's very hard.
Yeah, that's really
So, I mean, again, it's not that big a deal, right? It's like I'm blessed that I could have a baby. Like
Right.
all the blessings, like it's not,
Sure,
but it's
but
just,
now
I
you
just
can
feel
say all
like if
those
I had
things.
married somebody that just was kind of like nonchalant about it, I might have, put it off, which is also great. That would have been fine. But it just kind of worked out
right.
that way. Yeah. And so I was teaching when my water broke, had a baby, kept teaching, like I took about 5 weeks off because it's a job that you can do. Like I didn't realize I was being forward thinking. And then when Isla popped out, I was like, oh, this is like great. Like I don't have to travel, because even as a dancer, I had to travel a lot to make money. You can't always just say like, I just want to be here, because obviously there was a 15 years. So we talked about Universal, we talked about the highlights, but like there was a lot of travel and
stuff.
living in different countries for a couple months at a time because
That's
actually
where you
just
had to
needed
go.
that income, and so you just start thinking, I don't know. So that would be something that I would tell like younger people. I'm like, I did not have a vision of what my 40 and 50-year-old life would be at all. Like I was just very like narrow-minded, and I think it was really the back injury that was like a blessing. Like I think if you just find the reason behind all the different things. Because I hated working out. I was like, and that's how I kind of built. I was like, I sold it to people. I was like, if you don't like working out, you will love this, because I never knew what to do in a gym. I've evolved since then. I do know what to do. I've gotten more educated, but at the time, I really it was just Pilates, and I loved it.
It's funny you say that because I struggled for a long time in my life. I've always, struggled with weight and exercise and fitness and all of the things my whole life. And I've always been a fitness person, but for as long as I can remember. But growing up as a dancer, you didn't have to worry about exercise because you were just always working out by accident because you loved it.
Right.
And then you have to find an exercise or a workout or a gym or something that you enjoy doing.
Yes.
And so I tripped and fell many times, and then finally found, and it's challenging if you're not on your path and you're like a notch below like I was, and I wanted to do dance for fitness and fun.
Right.
You are in an aerobics class at the gym, or you are at Broadway Dance Center with people that are going for auditions right after you.
Right.
So I would go to Broadway Dance Center. It was super fun, and I loved going. But that wasn't. I was there for fitness, and everyone else is there and like preparing for an audition,
Right.
which was amazing and super fun to be around in my 20s, but like not really for like the long-term goal as far as fitness.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you're like, should I be going to the audition after this? Like I have like a
My answer is
full-time
like,
job. I'm like,
Must have
maybe
been a good class.
yeah, I'm like, maybe I should. And then I found Tootsie, who is a dance teacher who built a dance business out of the same desire to find
Joy.
fitness and dance combined.
Yeah.
And that was
Jamie moved here because of Tootsie.
literally.
I love it.
It was actually,
It wasn't the beach.
to be fair,
was Tootsie.
Soul Cycle came first for me. So Soul Cycle was my answer because it was rhythm. For me,
The music,
dance
yes.
was always music for me. So rhythm and dance and loud music and that environment. And then I found Tootsie. But spin, actually, interestingly enough, which a lot of dancers also find spin, I think is interesting, becomes that
Right.
it filled the void.
Yes.
Of the community, of the fitness, the music, the rhythm, things like that. But now the fact that I'm 42 years old and I get to dance for fun twice a week is nothing I would ever have imagined.
Right.
So I think I mentioned Tootsie every single episode.
What I
that.
wanted to
She's
say,
my girl.
I also wanted to say, and we said this,
Yeah.
in our January episodes, we had 2 local organizations that are well known for these reasons.
Yeah.
By accident, but also maybe not by accident, right? And one of the young women that we interviewed last week, her name's Mary, right?
Mari.
Mari. She is you, but 20 years ago.
Right.
she was a Disney princess.
Disney on Ice.
I watched this
Yes.
podcast
Yeah,
last
she
night.
was
Fascinating.
I know. I
right?
thought the
And you
same thing.
probably were sitting there like,
Yeah. I'm like, girl, I
selling,
know.
like she's now teaching spin.
Yes.
And what I was saying, and this is coming back to the well-being and what you two intuitively were drawn to and created as a husband and wife and separate, she's doing the job now.
Right.
Like fitness was not a job
No.
when you were a kid. Like now it is an actual, like you can grow up. What do you want to be when you grow up? You can grow up and actually be in these professions and be and working on well-being, and it's not woo-woo. Right?
Right.
So you started the studio.
I did. I taught, in my studio in Manhattan for many, many years, and that was hard to leave because, with the baby I couldn't be commuting, and I had a long-standing relationship with a lot of those people, and they become very
Close to you.
So that was a little bit of a starker, and then rebuilding here was very challenging because, this was 2008 or 9, and I'm like, Pilates has been around since the 40s, and people will be like, oh, like that's a new fad, like, and I'm like, it's not, but but it was interesting moving to a community that really hadn't heard of it for the most part. Not everyone, certainly there were like small studios here, and I don't mean to offend anybody that was already doing it, but like that, the people I met, the moms that I met, just literally had
No clue.
no idea. Like they'd either never heard of it, and or thought it was like, oh, that's like up and coming, like that's like the new thing, and
Like
it was
yoga.
just-
It's just,
right,
yeah.
right. You're
You're like,
just
yoga's not new.
Yoga's been from like
not new.
Yoga is not
1200
Yeah.
BC.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, it is new compared to yoga,
Yes.
but it's
Yes,
it's
yes.
just it's had longevity, like really in a lot of places, not just New York. So
what made you decide to open your own place here? Because you were here.
Megaformer.
Megaformer.
No, Megaformer. Like I was happy in my garage. I had like 2 little machines set up. I had a very like strong practice going. It worked for the family. And then my one of my good friends that was still living in the city, she's like, you got to come in and do this thing called Megaformer. And I was like, oh, Jackie. I was like, that sounds like fake, like Pilates, like, who I am. Like, I'm like real,
Yeah.
got the real sort of, and I went in and I was on the machine and I did my first plank and I looked at her and I was like, oh my gosh, like I have to bring this to Jersey now. Like it was this like gut reaction and actually kind of sad. I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to manage people. I don't want an overhead. Like I just felt like it was too stressful. That was not at all what I wanted. But the feeling of like, this is what I've always wanted Pilates to feel like. Because I love Pilates. But you can walk into a Pilates class and feel like my grandmother wouldn't even have been challenged there. Or you can walk into one that's like, good.
I mean, I've never taken your class through the years where I didn't feel like I was borderline
Going to
deaf.
die.
That's what I love.
Also, though, what I find so interesting about both of your stories is that you started what you're doing here out of pure passion and desire
And wanting to
spread
gifting it to your community.
to spread the love and the joy that you have found in the type of medicine that you practice and then in the type of fitness that you practice to bring it to others. And that's a service that you are providing and that you innately wanted to provide to not just, and that's really who Marissa and I are. Like, we love something, we want to shout from the rooftops about it. Marissa has been asking Danny to be on the podcast probably since the day she met her.
Yeah.
Like
And I've always said, and I don't go nearly, and I'm the first to say it. Maybe Evan goes a little more than I do. I don't know.
It was twice a week. It's a
okay.
recommended daily dose.
Fair. So like, I'd like to go all the time. It just, for whatever the reason through the years, it has either not been something I could fit in or I'll go every once in a while and then I'll admit vulnerably that I get disappointed that I'm not as strong because I haven't gone, and then I power down a little bit. So that's my truth, and I'm saying that because I have my own issues with my own competition and my own crap that goes on there.
of course.
We're all human. But I actually just went 2 weeks ago, I think. I was there. I took
Love that.
Jenny's
I always
class.
love seeing you. Well,
I know.
I mean, also, Marissa, I know you. I could be nice to you, girl. Like Jenny is just like,
That was
yes,
this is what I had planned.
I was
can't help.
So here's the thing, Jenny.
she's hard.
I'm mature. I don't know if I can move. I'm like, can I have one of the long sticks? Like, I was like, I don't know. Anyway.
But one of the things that I love about Danny's studio specifically, but really, Megaformer or Pilates, both of which she offers there, is, and because I recommend it to my patients too, and I'll send them her way, is you can go there when, like Danny found it, when you're rehabilitating an injury.
1,000%.
Right? You can go there when you're a professional athlete and you want
you're
to stay
adding it.
strong to be able to do what you want to do, or you can go when you're a weekend warrior and you want to be able to move on the court better, or you want to hit the ball further, whatever it is. There's some benefit you can get, or just general fitness. You can be a runner and you want to keep core strength. There's something in it at every level for all the people that want to come to it. So, I mean, the benefit is tremendous. But the other thing I was going to say, and you mentioned this earlier, just like Craig said before, he does the job not because of the dance, it's because of the people right around.
You're just trying to find more people to drink with, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, as
Now that you're of
passionate,
age,
It's not a lie.
so as passionate as you are about and good as you are at teaching and about the Pilates, what she's created at her studio between the instructors and also the people that go there, it just is elevated beyond just the Pilates.
And I
mean, the way
agree,
people feel about
1,000%.
that.
And also, you can go, if you go once, twice, multiple times, the warmth and welcome is always the same.
Yeah.
And there's no, like, for me, the fact that I'll
It's
go
the Southern
once every,
hospitality.
yes, but if I go once in a blue moon, or I'm consistent for several months, there's no
Shaming.
There's no judgment. There's
It's
just
not door
support.
open. I'm here.
Yeah.
Like, here I am. My lights are on.
Yeah.
And there's a honest welcoming for where you are in that moment. And the reformer, like a mat, meets you where you are, wherever you
Exactly.
are, right? So I find Pilates, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Pilates, and I'm a huge fan of Pilates-based strength because, and I think, and this goes into well-being and aging, I don't like to feel pain anymore.
Right. Right.
And a lot of things that our generation was doing caused me a lot of pain. And Pilates does not. Doesn't mean it's not hard,
Right.
but it doesn't cause pain.
Right.
And I think women as a whole, and Doctor may be able to weigh in on this, we don't know the difference between sore and pain way too often.
Right.
And because our wellness for most of our 20s and 30s and maybe into our 40s is actually not about well and about vanity, we continue to do things when we're injuring ourselves.
Yes.
And I'm now at a stage, as vain as I still am, also vulnerable share. I'm working out regularly for the long game,
Yeah.
and not necessarily the short skirt. Although that's nice when your legs still look good, but like also like I just want to be able to use my legs,
Right.
kind of.
That's yeah, and it's interesting. One of the correlations of our two businesses in one way is that because people still don't really understand or grasp what osteopathy is, like, unless you've
Osteopathy, got it.
I know. I
Osteopathy.
did it. Yeah. Let's
Osteopathy.
mess myself up. And people still don't know Megaformer or Pilates, or they think they do, but they're like, oh, I'm not very flexible. Like, those are the things I get, or I don't really want to stretch. I really like hardcore or whatever. And I feel like we were like, I call us like the last stop people. Like, it's like they see every other doctor, they've had every shot, they've done every electric shot, blah, blah, blah. And I did the same thing. So my back injury, I had seen all the doctors, like hospitals, and in medical school, he helped me more than anyone else. Like, so I immediately believed in, I was literally laying on the table in our apartment. I was like, I didn't even live there yet. And I was like, what the hell he's doing? Like, it doesn't feel like anything actually. And then you get up and you're like, what did you just do? How does that feel so much better? And it's something that you can kind of explain it, but it would bore everybody here, but it just is. So a lot of people, even if you tell this story, they're still just like, yeah, but I don't get it, so I'm not gonna go. And we're last stop people. Like, it's like they've seen everybody, and then finally,
But you're welcoming last stop.
yeah, absolutely. And like, that's a great thing. It's just kind of interesting that, like, when you, like, I get a lot of women that say, like, I can't do
Guess
CrossFit
what?
anymore.
We're
I can't
still
do
last
this.
stop people too.
Yeah.
So people have tried to find their own jobs, or they try to make their own magic.
Yeah.
and they realize that there's a resource for them, and
Right.
they come to help ask us for help.
That's true.
And then
And
they say,
again,
"I wish I had come sooner."
Yeah,
I
all
wish I had
the
found you
time.
sooner.
Oh, I
Right.
wish I had
You have to
known
be
that
ready,
this existed
right?
sooner. Yeah.
Right.
And you have, like, Marissa says this all the time. You have to be ready to do the work. Like, when we work with people that are usually either small businesses, which is how I met Evan, or a job seeker that's just trying to make some sort of magic, and they need the push or the logo or the resume or the one pager or the Instagram handle or just something to help them get from A to B. They need to be ready to do the work. So that's why oftentimes people call us career coaches, and we are a career coach. We're more like career strategists, right? We're thinking about the long game.
Yes.
It's not just, and also can do that, the quick fixes like the resume edit or whatever. But we're not life coaches or career coaches. We play one on TV, if we, like we say, but you also almost need to know already what you want,
Right.
and then you come to us. Same kind of thing. Like,
Or you
I
come
want
to
to
me
feel
flailing,
better.
and you, or but flailing, but like focused.
But you
Meaning
know
that
what you
like,
you
you're like,
know
I
where
need
you
your
want to
help,
go.
so here I am. I'm
It's
gonna
not
do
like
your
I'm like I
advice.
have no idea what I want to do with my life. Although we can help those people too.
Right.
Like, people come to you because they've tried everything else already.
Exactly. That's what
Or
I mean.
they're like, they've heard about this and they're like, maybe I want to try this instead of surgery or instead of
Yes.
medicine or whatever the case is. I love that.
Yeah, it's just like
Last
I said,
step,
it's just
people.
Last step, which is fine. Like, that's I
Cheers
love
to
that.
us.
What's nice though is when the last stop is their first stop.
Yeah, that is nice.
And then I would think
Because
that
then
the
they didn't-
generation coming up now,
And they tell people about you. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things I love about, again, why I went into family medicine to begin with, was because
Starting
I
earlier.
want to treat kids. I want to treat infants and newborns. So then if that's the window, the doorway where people come into the office, they bring their kids and they see the change that can happen with their children, then they start asking questions about themselves. Or they say, oh, my wife has had this issue, or my husband's had this issue, or my mom. So then there are some days where I have 3 generations that come in. You're treating
That's cool.
the grandkids.
a
the
family
kids.
affair.
Yeah.
I love that. So tell us, these are our last few questions that we could talk to you guys for hours, but I think I could probably guess them, but one of my favorite questions is what you consider your superpower. So professionally, okay? We do this a lot, this exercise with our coaching clients, where oftentimes we need to identify what it is that we bring to a situation that maybe somebody else can't. That makes us successful as a business owner, that might make us successful as a job seeker or somebody on an interview, to realize who you are innately and how you bring that to work, right? So Marissa and I always start, because we think it helps people figure out what theirs are. Mine is sparkle. And I've always said that. I've always been everybody's cheerleader. I grew up as a cheerleader, a performer. And I do that in my professional life, right? And my personal life. I lift people up. I make things shine. I shout from the rooftops about things that I love, all the things. So that's my superpower, because I think, I live life at a very high vibration. I wake up like this, all the quotes. I woke up like this. I'm not for everyone, all the things. That's just who I am. And that's what I bring to work, and now that I'm a business owner, I'm able to bring that to the way that we run our business, right? And Marissa's is her intuition. So between the two of us, and she can kind of just like gut reaction know what to do, and then I make it pretty, right?
It's not that I can't do things. I just let her do things.
Yes.
Because I struggle a little bit more.
I'm an executor.
Yes, I can.
As Tootsie calls me, who's a client of mine, I'm a get shit doner. Like, I just get it done. She has the grand idea, and then I just do it, and I do it in a pretty
You have a lot of good
sparkly way.
ideas too.
Thank you.
We're a good team, but the
But that's my
truth is
superpower.
I'm a listener. I'm an absorber. I can feel and hear and see what's next. It is probably somewhere in your world, but wasn't science, and I've utilized it in my professional and personal life for as long as I know, and I help guide people. So,
What
tell
about
me,
you
What do you
guys?
think?
I think for me, and I don't mean to say like, oh, haha, I'm so funny when I say this, but I think it's my sense of humor, because I think everything is funny. Like, literally, like it can be anything. And I just find like my brain just flips it and makes it and I can just laugh at most inappropriate times. And I found like that is helpful I get a lot of people that come in and they're uncomfortable or they're this or they're that. And I think that like it's easy for me to just disarm them and hopefully make them laugh, maybe at my expense, hopefully not at their expense, but sometimes,
Yeah.
depending on who it is.
I love that.
I
That is a
love that.
superpower.
It is a superpower. I think that means that you're metabolizing other people's emotion and creating it to be something joy and light.
That's the hope. You know what I mean? Like,
I love that. That's a great superpower.
You see me just trying to use like interesting verbs that Evan will like.
I like metabolize.
But when you asked my superpower, I thought I was going to get to say invisibility. But then you made me relate it back to business. I know, my daughter wanted me to say that. I was like, there you go. It's hilarious.
Oh, like that you could go underneath.
That was
Little
freaking
drop.
hilarious. Last night
Yes.
she's looking at the coach. She's like, Mom, what are you going to say to this? I was like, I don't know.
Invisibility.
And she was like, invisibility. And I was like,
And then go
God, you're
underneath
my,
the table.
I've never been more proud of you in that moment because that is a great answer. Obviously, that's my superpower, invisibility.
What about you? Do you have one?
I read the material coming up to this, and I knew that was potential, thing. And I'd heard other people ask, I still don't really
You're
have
stumped?
a great
You're
answer
stumped?
for it. But I would say,
I mean, I don't want to step on your toes, but I could answer this for you if you want to. But
I might be able to
We're gonna
answer,
cut
and I'm
that.
not your partner in crime, your wife, or anything
I'll-
else.
Well, so I'm actually very interested in hearing your guys' answers. But first, let me.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I'm able to do, certainly in my office, and I hopefully outside of my office, is bring kind of a calm and a grounding and a neutrality to a lot of the, emotions and heightened things that go on. A lot of people come and see me, and they're stressed, or even outside, situations. There's a lot of tumult, and if you can kind of bring things to a center and a calm and kind of diffuse, then I think a clarity emerges from that, and people can find a path. A lot of what you were describing was yours. I could resonate with that quite a bit.
I like though. I do feel like you feel like a cup of tea, or in
like
some
that.
maybe like in like if it was 1960, it's like a glass of sherry, right?
Yeah.
You do. You feel that way, and I think if I were coming to you, and I think people that are coming to you as a lost stop, they're coming to you raw. They're coming to you with
In
all their
pain.
nerves exposed, a lot of emotional pain from unexplained physical confusion,
Loss of
right?
hope.
And a lot of those things are really directly related. So if your bedside manner is calm, that's an immediate help or stepping stone to fix, right? Or heal. And for lack of a better way of putting it, you are a healer. And when you bring healing to somebody, how you do it is a part of the end result. People heal because they're open to being healed, and you're open to being healed by someone that creates that feeling of
Totally.
well-being, right? So I think that's great. I agree with you. And what I was going to say, and I don't want you going home tonight and like being too big for your britches, and like then you have to like
Watch it, Marissa. We don't need
but I was thinking that in addition to that, it could be your ability to think outside of the box. So I think that goes hand in hand with calm. I don't think that you are somebody that presented with X, Y, and Z receives just X, Y, and Z. You're somebody that is able to look in and out and around and find and think deeper than others. And that is really what's needed for a lot of people.
Yeah, I was going to say curiosity. Like that you at such a young age were able to find this path of medicine that was, I guess, more atypical to a kid from Long Island, just son of a dentist. You kind of went on your own path that way. Sorry, excuse us. I'm making a profound thought.
My
that
phone, my keys.
the curiosity that you need in order to kind of break away from the norm, regardless of what that is.
How old is your daughter?
Is unique.
16.
Is she at RBR? So you have 2 years before she's off somewhere. This is not something I like to talk about.
Don't make me cry.
But what I was going to say was that's when you could take an internship at like Red Bank Animal Vet.
Yeah.
It's a great idea.
I'm just saying, like, I was just trying to, like,
Yes.
I know. Don't we all?
We have to come back to the lion tamer eventually.
Like, eventually.
Like, we need to figure out a way for
you're
Evan
friends
to
with the guy
play
that
with
walks the
big
tightrope?
cats.
That's right.
What's the guy that walks the
Oh
the rope?
God, the family that walks across. I forget their
What's
names.
Dad's fascinated with that.
Oh yeah, I know. I forget his name. The family that walks the tightropes. Ming's trying to come up with the name.
No, he's not.
Okay, so obviously in business, you both run a business. You have people who work for you and rely on you. We had people working for us for a long time. More recently, we're just
R.I.P.
the two of us.
I miss them.
Which we love. We don't need to. This is another topic for another day about, having staff and people relying on you. That was a big point of contention for us for a long time, but also a big driver because we had people that worked for us, mostly young girls in their 20s, relying on us for mentorship and income and flexibility and all of the things. So that we can very much relate. Now it's just the two of us, but regardless, you have to be inspired to keep going, right? So we have shifted and pivoted and done all of these things, and we were working, as you were mentioning before, under the infrastructure of our father's firm for a long time as partners. The Dreamcatchers was a side hustle as just a podcast at the beginning, and now it's become a full service career, firm that we started by accident because of COVID,
Yeah.
and we're running it on our own. Where we were running it for a family business and with the infrastructure of the overhead, et cetera. So you said that a little bit before, but what inspires you to keep going? You have people that work for you. Obviously, that tends to be the driving factor to continue to go. And obviously, I can probably guess that it's your passion for the things that you're teaching and the education that you're providing and the people that you're, improving their lives. But is there anything else that inspires you to continue to build and grow and change and be present in your business? People rely on you. Yeah. They get up. They need to be there. You need to be there at 5 a.m. or whatever time your class starts. But what else inspires you?
I mean, it's kind of a combination of all those things. Like, I really love that, I'll be 51 next month, but I love that.
Actually, you're older than me. Yeah. Just want to make sure that everyone's clear.
I know. I think you at some points said I was younger. I was like, well, I can bust that myth later.
Yeah.
I know I'm older than everyone in the room. But it's just like constantly evolved. Like, I mean, I have never worked harder than the first 5 years of that business. Like, I would come home sometimes and I would just like sit on the kitchen floor and the two babies would come up to me and I would just start crying. And he was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, it's just a day." Like, and there was nothing wrong, like, at all. It was
just hard.
Exhaustion. Like I said, the business side of things was a steep learning curve for me. I'm not great with any of but now it'll be 11 years, well, it's 10 and a half years, and enter Lizzie and the rest of the team. That took a long time because there was a lot of swing and misses, and that was hard for me because I do get very
emotionally attached.
Yes,
We're the same way.
Mentor, and all the things, and
then it doesn't work out. It's
right,
hard to hire people.
Yeah, and you can get hurt in the process, and listen, there's part of me that's still holding my breath, but right now and since COVID was, I know, really hard, and it was hard on my business, but it also kind of leveled me, like 7 years in, and it just leveled my business. And then I got to come back as, like, by learning from all my mistakes, knowing exactly who was the right fit at the,
You're still offering the online?
Mm-hmm. We do. But now I can just say I have recreated the dressing room. I've never had more fun at work since I left the entertainment business as I have in like the last 2 or 3 years. So kudos to like Lizzie and Jenny, like all the people that I work with, Liv, like they're just, it feels like family. And that's what I've always wanted. But that, I think, is like somebody that doesn't have a business mind. You probably shouldn't hire people thinking like this is adding to your work family because that's how you get hurt. But I think I couldn't do it any other way.
We're the exact same way. We don't know how to not.
Right. And now I really feel like
maybe because we're sisters.
Yeah.
Like we're family anyway,
Yeah, exactly.
So we have to hire people that feel like family.
Right. So I feel very lucky, and it's never been better. And it's largely to, especially Lizzie, who came in like a hurricane and like knows everything about social media. And, she just grew up in that world. She's going to be 30.
Right.
Yeah, she's young.
We share a birthday. How cute is that?
Oh my gosh, no way.
Yeah, we do.
When's your birthday?
March 13th.
I knew you were a Pisces.
That's right. I saw
On March
you.
9th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I knew it.
We're going to Vegas to celebrate her 30 years.
Oh,
I know.
gosh,
that's
that's
so
so
cute.
fun. That's fun. Okay.
I love that.
Yeah, Marissa can go into astrology another time, but Pisces typically have a talent, very creative, very passionate, driven. And the fact that you can like laugh at things.
I just
emotion.
there are two things I want to say. One, I think it's important to highlight that I will never forget, or I know that I don't want to forget how much you do in the community. And you've helped other
Dreamers.
businesses
Yeah.
and dreamers showcase, and you do it in such a nice way. Like there'll be a business card, or you're in the Scout Guide, which was a beautiful layout for both of you. You do things where it's very tasteful, and you just touch it a little bit, whether you're supporting the We Forum events or whatnot. But I think my favorite is, I equate eating salads because of you.
Jess, yeah.
Yeah, Jess.
Yeah.
And
By the way, is
honestly,
one of our last question, which is your dream crush, which we're
Yeah.
going to talk about in a second. The amount of times people say blonde shallot is their dream crush because they couldn't survive without them. And Marissa literally, I think, originally found them at Pilates class.
putting cash
And then we were
in
like-
an envelope at Danny's studio.
Yeah.
The fridge.
In like
in the fridge.
People would call me in like midnight, like, "Can you save me the Chinese chicken
Chinese
salad?"
chicken salad,
I was
duh.
like, "Girl, you got to come in and take class. I can't put your name on it."
no,
It's
literally,
first
and it
come,
was
first
like
served.
a little. It was just like an undercover.
Yes.
You know, 1985 movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you
Yep.
roll in, you're like pulling out your $7 or whatever. It was
Now it's
a
like
little less than
$15.95.
It's
Jess.
before overhead.
It's a
before
little less than.
overhead. Yeah.
But it's
and
worth every bite.
Leave
And,
it
and
Scout's
dime.
honor in an envelope.
Yep.
Okay, not Venmo, not Zelle, just like by the way, even then, God knows if I had $2, I'd have to
Well,
like dig those out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who has
And
dollars?
Jess and I are the same people. Like, she would never count that money. I would never count. I'm like, here.
You're like, it's
Salads
fine.
are gone. This is what I got.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
I was just like,
She's been on the pod before.
I
We
know,
love her. We
I love her.
Jess.
And wait, there was something else I wanted to say. Oh, one other thing. Who in this room got really, really angry when people were not treating you right at the new
I will
studio?
never forget that.
And I went wild.
Yes.
Like, wild. I don't know what
Marissa
happened.
has your back.
I literally went wild over something that happened when they moved from
Tinton Falls.
Tinton Falls to the
Yeah.
to the Broad Street location, and I won't name names in case we've amended. But you would think that I was like a beast, like, but something happened. I was very upset that she was upset, and I tore ass. Excuse my language. I opened the doors and started yelling at the people, like as if it's like
I love that.
I was
though.
so mad.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, "Did you see what she just did?" And I was like, "Listen, don't mess with my people." It was and it was like over parking spots.
Parking. Yeah.
No, that sounds right for Red Bank.
Hashtag
Yeah,
Red Bank.
exactly.
What about you?
we do have parking in the back.
Now we have parking in the back.
Plenty, generous.
What keeps you inspired besides the work, obviously?
Well, I think that teaching and
Educating.
I love having students come in through. I love giving lectures and it's really the aha moments that happen with patients and with students when they get a sense of it, and it reminds me all the time of my first aha moment.
Yeah.
I have a good idea for you, by the
me
way.
too.
I have a good idea
I
for
have
you.
an idea for you too. Same idea, I'm sure.
Yep.
What?
Oh, we're in.
We're in.
I can't
Yeah,
wait.
we have a good idea for you. Where do you typically do your classes? You do them in your like people just come in and take class from you, or?
No, it's kind of.
kind of a big
when
deal.
students work with me, they come into the office, but I teach at conferences.
Oh, at conferences, got it.
Either wherever they are around the country.
But if you wanted to do something locally, do you do that?
Well, he's just started.
I used to. I did that a few times in my office when it was a smaller group. A little larger group, you need a bigger space.
Give me an example of what a quick digestible curriculum would be for a class.
So these classes are typically for medical students or physicians in practice. So I'm teaching
And
He's
them.
teaching
giving
young
them-
osteopaths
Right.
to, you know what I mean?
Think a little better.
Yeah.
Would you do
I
a
should
course?
wiser.
Well, could you do a course for like the layman to like learn that you don't have to turn to certain
It's
things?
a great idea. I've thought about giving a lecture, community lecture on what osteopathy is, what health is, what you could do in your daily life to.
This is why you know the
to try to
Dreamcatchers.
support your own health. So that would be
Dreamcatchers.
We're gonna help you catch that dream.
We're ready.
Okay.
me too. I'm ready.
I love that idea. Okay,
Like,
so
instead of Tylenol, Dr. Evans says,
Do this.
this.
I love that.
Not
Okay,
that I don't
so
love a Tylenol moment. Sorry.
and do you guys have like a mantra at all, like that you say or that you live by, or at all?
I mean, he's like
Obviously,
helped me
I've
a
said
lot.
mine a lot during this, which is say yes. It's just say yes.
That's a good one.
Just go and do the things.
Just breathe.
Just breathe.
Yeah.
I love that.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm somewhere in between. I'm like, yes, just do that. But now I'm stressed. So just breathe. Just say yes.
Yeah.
Just breathe.
I love Just Breathe.
Yeah,
good song.
that's good.
It's also a great song. It's one of my favorites. Pearl Jam song. Okay.
You have to tell me.
Yeah, I'll have to show you after. She doesn't get it. So our last question is
Elderly woman at the counter, I know.
that like better man.
Yeah, better man. Basic bitch.
Okay, basic bitch. So the dream crush, which we talked about a little bit. So when we're working with our clients, we talk a lot about this because I think so often we get to where we were meant to go so much later because of, circumstance in life. And what we try to educate people on is that you can have a crush or like a dream job that you could probably get pretty close to if you did the right things and you said yes and you found the mentors and nowadays use LinkedIn to stalk and find and connect. So the dream crush started because we'll educate people that if you have a dream job and it's local or not local, most people would be like, oh, I died at work for Universal Studios as a dancer, but they don't do anything about it or try to find how you get there. And maybe, do you know someone that works for Universal? Can you call? Can you do? So this innate ability to network is what we gift to our clients. So that being said, having a dream crush means somebody that you're inspired by, that you think is doing all the right things. Now, typically, that is when it comes to job search, but it might be as a business, right? You might be like, oh, I just love the way that this person or this brand does it. It just feels, that's why I'm super inspired by it and I try to emulate that. Or I can't live life without, so Jess Rogers comes up a lot as Bon Chalet because she's just done it well and right from the beginning. That to me is an inspirational story. This woman's making salad in her kitchen and now is like the biggest, lunch, fast casual solution in Monmouth County. So that to me is,
She's a big fish in a small pond, and we all depend on her.
we all depend on her, literally multiple days a week. So how do you have another crush in the area that you think just does it well? And if it's not in the area, it's not local, that's fine too. People have crushed on people say Amazon on here.
Right.
That's not the point of a small business story, of course, but being that you guys are both small businesses.
And it might be, fitness. It might be it might be your reformer, like anything like that.
or a teacher, anybody that just, and then we like to shout it out because we think what's cool is then we tag and we share it, and people that are listening might find inspiration in those places and people as they're looking for work.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a recognizable brand to people down here, but Jane Dew are two. Do you know them?
Yeah, of course.
Two good friends of mine, and
I took class there in Jersey City or Hoboken.
And we have had millions of like get-togethers sitting on the beach, and I'll never forget when they wanted to rebrand because they used to be called the bar, like
Yes.
the BAR, whatever. So they would have like a sneaker and I was like, oh, you guys are geniuses, like the dance and and then they're like, yeah, no, this isn't it. We're going to rebrand. And I was like, Jane Dew. And then of course, because I don't have that mind, they were like, it just makes so much sense. And they are just such a women empowerment that it's just so interesting to me that, and they'll always say, they're like, we're not recreating the wheel. Like, it's not so much about the fitness for them. You know what I mean? They're like, we're doing all the same stuff.
Did you ever come there with me?
No.
They're they had dance-based classes, which is why I probably found it at the time when I was like searching.
And, they're franchising, they're doing all these like cool stuff. So they really approached it less about.
They also Rockettes? Yeah.
Yeah, we all danced together.
Yeah, I remember that.
And they're just, I think that they're just like little, they're a little bit younger than me, just about 5 or 6 years. But I'm like, I just think of those little baby geniuses. I was like, how did you guys think of all that?
Yeah.
And they're like best friends.
just
like,
did it
like
well.
sisters.
Yeah.
They really did. And
that's inspirational
Where
too.
is
Like
it? Edgewater?
No, it was in Jersey City.
they had
remember
5
it.
locations.
And then it was downtown
before COVID.
Hoboken also maybe.
And then they
originally
they opened in the city, but like some of their real expansion happened right before COVID. So that was
it didn't work out.
But now they're still going
now they're
strong.
still
Now
going
they're
strong.
franchising and like they just can pivot. and
Continue
just-
to pivot.
Yeah,
I love that.
And they're like you guys. Like one is like the real creative, and the other is like the get shit done. And
Yeah.
they just make a great team, and it's it's great. And so I've had a lot
That's
of...
a good crush. I like that one. Good shout out. What about you?
I'll go with low hanging fruit. I mean, I think Pilates Blast is one of them.
He has a crush on his wife.
And
Paid him to say it.
well, I'll tell you, because of a couple of things. One, that there's just the feeling that people have when they just go in there, and just really just an ever expanding community, and you just feel warm and welcome when you go there. You see familiar faces, you're a new face, whatever it is. And also, I love the presence out there, on the funny videos and that could come. It just, I don't know, it's very warm, it's very inviting. So I really like that. In terms of other kind of things in my space, I have some friends. I have a buddy, Steve, who's up in Massachusetts, and we were the same year at school, and had the same mentors growing, and he has really grown what he does and expanded, and he has private practice, he has these other things, but his teaching, he does a tremendous amount of teaching, and it has taken him to travel all over the world, and it's it's inspiring. I still go and see him, and I like listening to him lecture and teach. And
What's his name? Steve what?
Steve Kissel.
Steve Kissel.
And
Shout out to Steve.
Yeah,
Hey, Steve.
Steve's our dad's name,
So-
so we love the name Steve.
Yeah.
That's a good name.
there are a lot of Steves in osteopathy.
Yeah, interesting.
Dr. Kissel.
Dr.
It sounds nice.
Yeah.
He's-
I think what's important to note there, and I think this is a good way to wrap it up, is like one of the things I was saying is your superpower about, which obviously now is proving my point yet again, your curiosity of, you've been doing this for so many years. You found it very young in your career, yet you're still inspired by other people that are doing it, and that your exact peer and your contemporary.
You're still wanting to
learning
learn.
from people that are next to you, above you, below you. I think that you both kind of touched on this. You're not above any of that, right? So you kind of talked about how you found this dream job and you took a chance on yourself and you never thought you'd love, and found your calling that way, and then also brought you to meet the love of your life and build a life together, and all the things that it was all meant to be, as we always say. But that your curiosity and your ability to lean in and like learn from other people, and you're in a type of medicine that you have to be open-minded to the change and the learning from others and just listening and all of that, which I think is really, really important. And I think it's really inspirational. And I loved having you both
Me
here today.
too. This was
Together.
such an
And you
easy
really-
conversation. All we were missing was dinner and drink.
Yes, and we courted each of them individually for a while, and they were like, we should just do this together.
Actually,
because
that was my idea.
I just think it makes. Thank you, Marissa. I just think it makes so much sense. You also very much work in a space that kind of refers to each other. It's not black and white.
By the way, we didn't even talk about the fact that, you have a married couple, right? We're all guilty of being married also.
Yes.
We all have children. Our children are close in age. Jamie's are a hiccup younger. This stuff's
That's because
not
I'm
easy.
younger, as we've said.
This stuff is not easy.
Right.
Yeah,
And
and
the
running
fact that,
businesses.
So you what did you say? We said that you were calm. That's your self-proclaimed superpower, and you bring humor. To have two, for lack of a better way of putting it, solo entrepreneurs married in the same household, building brands in the same community, raising children locally, and being on paper, you're close to home. You could pick up from soccer, you can take to drum lesson, you can do all that stuff. But the infrastructure and the building of the business and being successful in your own right and being married and under the same roof for this many years, it's not easy stuff. So, and life doesn't get it easier, actually.
Right.
We just soften up to the hard and become wiser as we age because we're more accepting of the things that are hard and more generously enjoying the things that are beautiful, right?
Right.
So I really admire the two of you. And like I said at the beginning, offline, this is a day date. Thank you for taking the time to be here together. Yes, it was my idea to put them together, but also we were trying to figure out how to land their calendar. And I said, I'm going to ask Danny to make this happen. And I just felt like it was a really fun perspective in well-being, right? So we had a double entendre, but the trifecta of being able to support one another in our partnerships. And just listening to the two of you speak about each other's businesses, we don't need to know what goes on behind closed doors. At the end of the day, we all have our own closed doors. But if you're putting on in your front lawn all of the things that you've been busy doing that the rest of us are picking up, job well done.
Thank you.
And you know what?
Shameless plug to Evan's logo that I created as well.
Yes. I mean, and I guess if your kid one day meets somebody after 2 days and drops everything, this is a good example of sometimes
It can
that
work
works
out.
Sometimes
It can
it
work out.
does.
No, and
Just a guy from Long Island.
shout out to Trish Halfacre, who's my neighbor,
Yes.
who knew that I was creative and could help Evan land some planes, and we did that. And just grateful to have you here today and to meet you in person finally and get you here together. And thanks.
Very hard to get into Danny's class. You have to register early.
We didn't even get a chance to call out the name of your company, which I also think is pretty beautiful considering where we live. And I don't want to mess up the acronym, but it's called O.C.E.A.N, and it stands for,
The Osteopathic Center of Education and Nutrition.
which is such a beautiful acronym, right? Isn't it amazing?
It is a beautiful acronym.
to figure that out, and we highlight that in the logo, so we were very proud of that. And Pilates Blast, duh, we said that a couple times, but I just want to make sure we shout it out. Anything that we didn't get to cover, anything coming up at either place that you wanted to be able to talk about, anything else?
You have the fit crawl.
Yeah, the fit crawl's coming up.
Oh yeah, love the
Oh yeah, I
Fit
said
Crawl.
before.
Yeah. So you can sign up online. That's all.
Fit Crawl, for those that don't know, is an awesome event.
Isn't that when I get you like the one time a year?
Yeah, the
I
one
get
time
you?
a year I go to Pilates Blast. We didn't cover that. I don't really go.
We handled that well, I thought.
I go
To
a
Cora.
lot of other places, but not. I don't lean in as much as I should to
That's
Pilates
okay.
Blast. But yes, I typically go on.
Jamie, you're on your way to your last stop.
Yeah, my last stop is coming. The trains.
I'm
the
gonna
trains.
get you in a few years.
Yeah, the trains at the
Jamie
end. Of the
hobbles in. She's
Yeah.
like, shoot, I should have come here sooner.
Totally. Literally all my friends go. But yeah, so We Forum is an awesome organization locally that does a fit crawl where you can experience different fitness places across the peninsula and across Monmouth County. Super fun way to
And the
try
money
new things.
raised is for our local community. as
Yes,
well.
it's a really cool way, and it's a cool way to try new things that you wouldn't otherwise try. Like when I've gone to Pilates Blast, like the 3 times I've been there, but I've been there and I loved it.
But you gotta love Monmouth County. You gotta love where we live because there is a mutual admiration and support for all the other local fitness businesses. Now, granted, Danny might be saying whatever about them in her kitchen, but outside of that, it's
very supportive.
There is a supportive.
Yes.
There's something for everybody.
There's space for everyone.
and there's
Agree.
space for everyone.
There really is.
There is.
People find
So
find their people.
That's
Yes.
February what? 24th?
24th.
Okay. And anything coming up or that you wanted to mention that you didn't get to say?
I guess we're going to have to look out for local lectures because
We're gonna stay tuned for local lectures. Thanks to the Dreamcatchers.
Well,
We have some ideas for you.
think that there's so many of us that are intuitively connecting the dots between nutrition and how we feel. And our wellness, like our medical wellness, and there is a
And
missing-
fitness and nutrition and all of it
And
connected.
I'm not even talking about weight, but I mean, granted, that's an extra thing, but like, there's a lot of things that don't connect the dots between traditional medicine and healthcare and specialists and where everybody doesn't intersect. And if you're an intuitive person and you just feel like something's off or one doctor's not saying what you need to know, someone like you would hear that and try to figure it out together.
Yeah.
And I mean, not for nothing, life can be better lived. Like so much of us feel like crap a lot.
Yes.
And you don't have to feel like crap a lot. You just have to have awareness to what it is that's making
You
or
feel like crap?
contributing to it.
yeah, and a lot
Maybe
of
it's the
times it's just
Snickers.
that first or second step.
I eat a lot
Right.
better
You
now.
know, once you just introduce that and
You
get people
get a
to
group
take-
of people together and you say, okay, so Snackwells are a no, right?
Snackwells don't exist.
I know. Well, they were a hard no for a long time.
I think overall we're very, and we find that every time we have these conversations, how like-minded we are with our guests, is that we all are preaching that same thing, which is baby steps, start small, come in, ask a questions, take a class, reach out, maybe know that there's resources out there that can help you.
I'm excited for the next thing.
And me too. And thank you so much to Ming and Shared Universe for having us. Thank you. Just have to shout out my first boyfriend, Justin Timberlake. Happy birthday. And sorry I'm missing your show at Irving Plaza. I was not chosen.
Me either.
And I love you very much. And you're going on tour while I'm at Sleepaway Camp, so I'll have to figure that out. Anyway, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
This was a pleasure. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I should have said